Hello, this is Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm your host, Bonnie Burkert, here to share tools for transformation to live your highest truth. One of my most favorite tools is astrology. I really like to pay attention to the cycles of the moon and certainly take it far, far beyond. I mean, there's nothing like the night sky. And part of that, astrology, also, I have a special blend of the two. Every Friday night, there's a fantastic show on YouTube to watch, brought to you by Dynasty Electrik. We have Jenny and Seth of Dynasty Electrik here to talk a little bit about her weekly astrology read, as well as the beautiful sound vibrations that they then play for us to help us align with what's going on in the cosmos. Welcome, Jenny, Seth, and also special guest star, Phoebe. Or as you say, Phoebe.
Phoebe, yes. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. Phoebe really wanted to be a part of this vibration and conversation with Bonnie. So
Thank you.
thank you, Bonnie, for having us so much. We're really so happy to be here.
So let's start with your astrology, Jenny. I'd love to see, I'd like to talk to you about how you formulate the weekly comments that you give to us that then lead into the music that you and Seth play together.
Yeah, so my astrology journey started about 20 years ago. Seth had a loft in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and we were hosting all of these events, mostly experimental music parties and visionary art parties. And one of his friends at the time, Kevin Eulinger, was this incredible astrologer and also mathematician. He could basically calculate all of the coordinates and the sacred geometry of the planets in the sky when you were born in his head and compare them to what was going on in the sky at this moment, all doing the calculations without any computer programs or written calculations. So I always thought that was pretty amazing. But even deeper than that is the interpretations and all of the rich information from these incredible archetypes that are connected with cosmic intelligence and energy. And so I started studying with Kevin 20 years ago. Every week for years while I was in New York City before I came out here to Los Angeles. And I've always found throughout my journey that whenever I dig deeper into some kind of cosmic phenomenon happening at this moment, and the archetypes of my individual chart, and also where I am on the planet, there's so much information that has helped me so deeply on my journey that I'm so happy to share some of this knowledge and channeled information every week with everyone, because I feel like sometimes something really hits home and it helps it click. And you know it already, you know your truth, you know it in your soul. But when there's this information, this cosmic wisdom coming through based on these archetypes of human experience, that just dials something in and it clicks, and it really helps you to just either release something because you got it in that moment, or to move forward in a new way.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. So we'll come back to a few more details about astrology, but I want to also, because I want to talk about both the sound healing and the astrology, and so you as musicians, I wanted to ask Seth, when Jenny takes a look at what's happening on the week-to-week basis and comes up with a theme that will be the conversation, how does that influence your decision of what kind of music you'll then play during the sound bath?
Well, I feel that there's always a special connection between interstellar activity and music. There's just a natural connection between musicians and the stars that the cosmic alignment of the planets and the galaxies and universes actually really do influence the improvisation from week to week. And so every week does change, and it's actually is influenced by the astrology that basically just it's a really more of an intuitive connection that it's we just allow it to we based on whatever on Jenny's reading, that then we just go into an improvisation, and one of the techniques we employ, although not in the studio, is to actually perform music out underneath the stars. And so that we actually, because usually you perform music inside of a room.
Yeah.
And so when you perform music outdoors at night and underneath the just this cosmic ceiling, that we have found that that's really when that cosmic and astrological energy really starts channeling through the music in this really profound way.
We're in Nova Scotia right now, and a few mornings I walked out around like 5 a.m. and I have never in my life seen such vivid stars. I felt like literally I was walking out of my door into the Milky Way, into the galaxies, right into the stars. And so I'm getting like goosebumps when I'm thinking about it. And I think that's part of the reason we're here, is just that we've always felt that connection to cosmic intelligence, whatever you want to call it, energy, activity. This series Seth talks about that we were playing out in the stars is called Pleiadian Sound Healing. So we have all of these different movements where we went out under the stars and channeled this music, and just felt called to name it the Pleiadian Sound Healing series.
Fantastic. And that is on all the different streaming platforms, correct? I think I saw that on Spotify, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it's available both as videos on YouTube and as music on Spotify.
Okay.
And just to Jenny's point about Nova Scotia, it's really actually after being in LA for many years and then coming to this little neck of the woods, it's just really fascinating because in LA, it's actually the city is actually shields the stars of the night sky with all the bright lights.
Yeah.
And so to come here where the dark is so profound, that I've been seeing the planets shine in different colors that I'm not accustomed to seeing. So it's been really just special in that sense of just connecting with the cosmic stars out here. It's been really fascinating, and it's definitely been influencing the music and the weekly sound baths.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to hearing, first of all, what happens this week with with that experience while you're there, as well as the body of work that comes forth. And it definitely, I love to contemplate what our forefathers must have been able to experience when they didn't have all the light pollution that we do now. And I mean, talking about sort of an understanding of astrology, it must have been entertainment for them of sorts. I mean, certainly a study and a nightly study, a survey to figure things out.
Yeah, we totally agree, Bonnie. What comes to mind right away, and I know Seth's thinking the same things. We all been thinking each other's thoughts, but you see the constellations in a way that you haven't necessarily seen before. When you see them so vividly in the sky, you see additional stars and the patterns more clearly, so you can really see more of those beautiful archetypical envisionings that people had in ancient times when they created the constellations and associated them with the archetypes of the astrological archetypes. So it's just really interesting to see it so vividly and to tune in more to what our ancestors saw.
Yeah, very much so. Seth, you want to comment a little bit on your experience around that and how your imaginings?
It's what's really fascinating to me is always that since the stars are projecting their light from across the universe, and it's actually their light that we're seeing right now actually is telling the story because it happened many, many light years ago. And so we see these stories written across the night sky. And we actually can see these different constellations of, and what I've been seeing recently is really seeing these figures, like these beings that the constellations form in this sacred geometry that's formed by the different stars and different galaxies. And it's just, to really just seeing it, it's just like this illustrated cosmic history It tells not just our history here on Earth, but also this history that spans planets and galaxies which are older than ours, even, and how connected we actually are even to these distant planets and star systems, even here on Earth now that the night sky is kind of the cosmic glue that we're able to catch a glimpse of some of these mysteries, but they're actually, and then Jenny ties it together so nicely with the astrology of interpreting what these greater patterns mean for life here and now on Earth. And of course, being followers of astrology, we all know that sometimes the astrology, it just strikes a chord because you're like, I can't believe that the stars knew this about my situation, whatever it may be at this moment, but it's
As
true.
above, so below.
Indeed.
So it's endlessly fascinating to us.
Oh, yes. I mean, I think it's very, very affirming. I don't necessarily feel the need to use astrology to forecast as much as it's a weather report. I mean, right?
Completely.
And I just think it helps to know. Like, for example, we were talking about it before we started taping, that I had a lot of trouble sleeping last night. And I was super tired and I hadn't had really had any caffeine. So I'm like, why am I wide awake? And my apartment was filled with moonlight. I mean, the moon is full as we tape, and probably right around this time, as a matter of fact. And I just love looking at that. And I was talking with somebody and he was saying, well, you're attuned to that. But I said, yes, but I think that even if it helps to know. I think it helps to explain why you might feel a little edgy, having trouble concentrating. I think it really helps and that's just the moon. Now, as we go further beyond, there's other influences, and we can choose to ascribe to that relevance of what Jupiter does, who Mars is. You can choose to or not, but I think life's much more interesting if you listen to the subtleties, and this information came from somewhere. It's for some reason. So, and it has.
I agree, Bonnie, completely with what you're saying in terms of not necessarily using it to predict particular circumstances, although it can give you an idea of some inclinations of how something may unfold. But really, I feel the most empowering way to use it is to just show you a blueprint of energy that's available to you.
Okay.
What's unfolding at any particular time so that you have some tools to navigate that. And I tend to keep a weekly astrology pretty general in that sense, and really connected to the archetypical energies within us and around us. More of like an astrology meditation rather than a specific forecast of energy.
And very much personal development as well. So It's so great. I love that you do it on a Friday and you really invite us to let our week go. And I mean, not everybody works the, Monday through Friday work week, but even if you're not on that schedule, it's a collective consciousness thing. Mm-hmm. So you really help us wind down and assess. And it's really very, very helpful. And also, again, a level set on what could be happening, and something that we can, I'll use the word meditate on, but certainly help process what's happening in our lives, in our worlds, and an invitation to go beyond. And then you take us through the beautiful calling of quarters, right? The energies of the medicine wheel.
Someone was just commenting on that. Seth was mentioning, they're like, wow, your sound bath is so interesting because on the one hand, it's this crystal sound bath and astrology meditation, but then there's also like Hindu mantras and like Native American blessings and but we really like to just incorporate anything we feel that's powerful from any tradition. Anything that's resonated with us can be part of a sacred ceremony that helps you to release tension and stress and just tune into the power of your inner being, your inner galaxy. So whatever tradition that comes from, but what is interesting, someone was commenting, wow, it's all these different things.
I think it gets me every time. I find it very, very, very moving when you speak of Mother Earth and Father Sky. And so bringing that in and just reminding us, and you really, what you do is you get us so relaxed. First, you help us think and process what is going on, and that can explain what has perhaps happening in our lives. And then we get into reverence, and then devotion, and then the music comes in, and then you and Seth start to really. You get us so open and ready. And so let's talk a little bit about the bowls that you have. And I'm sorry we don't have music on this show. We will make sure that there are links available so that you can find Jenny and Seth. But why don't we talk a little bit about the crystal bowls and the other types of instruments that you're using?
Absolutely. And to your point just slightly earlier, the Friday night, I think, is like such a special time. That there's like this magic on Friday nights that even with the unconventional work weeks that a lot of us have now, that there's still something special about that. And we before we became sound healers, we were actually having Friday night parties in Brooklyn many years ago that would go and all night long and just be these really great celebrations with dancing and music, and it was just wonderful. And then we came to LA and we got into Friday night sound healing and sound baths. And we discovered it was just also a great time just to really just fall into the zone and just really just relax. And even if you were going to go out, and even if you were going to go out and party that night or anything else or celebrate, that the sound bath was actually a great prelude, a great start to the weekend.
That's nice.
And so we kept it going on the internet. And crystal bowls are based on ancient technology, of this ancient Chinese and Tibetan technology of the metal singing bowls, which are common in Tibetan monasteries and also in India as well. That they're made of bronze or brass, and this is just ancient, like thousands of years ago. Archaeologists uncover evidence of this in like Sumerian culture as well.
Wow!
So it's people have been using singing bowls for as long as they could make them, basically. This basic magic of a bowl that you can actually emulates the human voice and creates this singing tone. It's just a beautiful thing. And crystal singing bowls are the modern interpretation, where using modern technological equipment, that they actually liquefied crystal quartz and fashion them into these crystal singing bowls. And so they are a relatively recent technological phenomenon, but they are really powerful since they are actually made of quartz. And as we know, quartz has this special healing quality of purification and cleansing, and just having that energy of the quartz in the bowls themselves creates a really powerful resonance. So crystal singing bowls have really become widespreadly in use because of their beautiful sound and their purity of their sound, and you can also they can achieve very high levels of volume, so you can really feel them. So we really attempt to capture the magic of the singing bowl on in our YouTube recordings, because in person it actually can have a different effect. And so translating that is something we really work on to bring the magic of the crystal singing bowls to everyone. Because when we were doing sound baths in LA, we loved it. It was wonderful. But it's been really great to offer it on YouTube as well, because we've been able to reach people from all across the globe. And it's really helped us to connect with a lot of people that otherwise we may not have been able to. So, and just to bring that magic of the crystal bowls and that relaxing, healing quality that they bring, just allowing us to bring it to a global audience.
Are the crystal bowls attuned to different chakras? Is that how do you select the bowls that you wish to work with? Because I know there's many different types.
They are. there's a basic theory in sound healing that there's 7 notes in the C major scale, which is the most basic scale in all of music building. And there's 7 crystal bowls that correspond to these 7 notes and 7 chakras. And so, starting with the C bowl, which we assign to the first chakra, the base of the spine, and then the second bowl in D, which is the sacral chakra, and moving through all the way up to the crown. Each bowl corresponds to each of these different energy centers. And so when we're creating our music, we always have this in mind, that this is kind of a basic roadmap, because there's actually potentially many more chakras and many more notes in music. And so it's really about
frequencies and
frequencies.
Yeah.
So it's really about the intention. So if you intention that C is the first chakra, or that F is the heart chakra, for example, and G is the throat chakra, that infuses that note, that vibration with that power to potentially harmonize that energy center. And so these roadmaps are valuable because it allows us to infuse our sound with that intention to balance that particular chakra. And so each week we move through different energy centers, very frequently focusing on that first chakra, because that sense of groundedness, that sense of being one with the earth and just very comfortable in our own body is just kind of where it all starts. And then moving through the different systems, ending with the more ethereal chakras, because there's actually even 12 chakra systems and other systems which actually have chakras which are, for example, right above the head in the aura, in the energy field of our bodies, and even into the cosmos, and also into the center of the earth. So that the 7 chakra system, the map gets greatly expanded. But back to your question about the crystal bowls and the chakras, that each week we formulate a basic kind of healing formula for, say, a grounding energy of the first chakra, heart opening energy at the center of the chest, and then third eye opening at the crown, the third eye area or crown chakra, and creating music that corresponds to that. So it kind of leads you on this journey, so that rather than just starting, for example, with like the most cosmic experience, that starts more grounded and kind of leads you into that higher ethereal experience.
It's so great. I'm just smiling. I'm just grinning so happily, because it's so interesting to see, like, okay, how are we connecting a conversation about astrology and a conversation about sound healing? But it completely works, because it really is about the spiraling up of energy, which then spirals beyond our little vessels into the beyond, into the higher frequencies of our universe. I mean, that's how it works for me anyway. I hope that, dear listener, you feel and you tune into it that way yourselves.
Yeah, totally. There definitely is a pretty strong connection on a vibrational level, I feel. What comes to mind is, actually, I was just thinking of that concept of music of the spheres. That's really cool. Could you explain that a little bit? Because I think Bonnie would really, and
Please.
the listeners would really enjoy that concept.
Well, it dates all the way back to Pythagoras, who was a mathematician, scientist, and mystic in ancient Greece. That he had this idea that each of the planets is making a certain sound, and so therefore the solar system is a kind of a musical instrument. That each planet and each heavenly body is actually creating a tone and a frequency, and that these are creating a kind of cosmic symphony. That the way that they orbit around each other, essentially the way we play the singing bowl, as if it were orbiting around the singing bowl, that is creating these different tones that are having different relationships with each other at different times as they're passing each other, and creating this heavenly music, which is seemingly imperceptible to us here on Earth. But I feel like when we reach a point of being very quiet, we hear something called the nadam, which is it's a ringing sound, which is considered a gateway into divine consciousness. And to me, that is where, if you you can actually find that music of the spheres inside of yourself, which is really the only way to really hear it. It's so that that concept continues to he extended that concept actually to the human body as well. That he was the first documented sound healer. That he wrote songs for specific healing specific conditions. And so they had different melodies and different scales. It was influenced by this idea of music of the spheres, that this planetary alignment was influencing people's behavior on Earth, and that by simply adjusting that energy field through music, that he could potentially create those harmonious conditions and heal the person from their affliction. And
so this connection of cosmic intelligence and sound healing is actually a really ancient concept and practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is incredible. And how did Pythagoras figure this out? I mean, that's where it's just like it's a divine download. I mean, it feels like, I mean, where did that knowledge come from?
I've heard it speculated that Pythagoras was initiated into mystery schools of ancient Egypt.
Okay.
And that ancient Egypt is speculated through Platonic writings is actually the vestige of the ancient Atlantean Empire. That the Atlantis was a vast a maritime empire that controlled probably most of northern Africa and Europe at the time, but was, according to Plato, was wiped out in a day and a night by this gigantic tsunami and storm. And so there's no trace of their civilization. But supposedly, the Egyptians were actually a colony of Atlantis. And so the ancient Egyptian pyramids and some of the technology that they had was actually potentially Atlantean technology.
From the Pleiadians.
Which,
of course.
Well, perhaps. But that perhaps Pythagoras studied at a mystery school in Alexandria, Egypt. And then when he returned to Greece, he was all of a sudden had all these mystical insights into astrology, into sound healing, into mathematics, and that perhaps he had been initiated into a meditation practice or into another mystical practice in Egypt.
Wow. That it just keeps getting more and more mind-blowing. And yet it's also beautiful because it starts to, I mean, this is all information that I love and I'm interested in, as I'm sure our listeners are. It's all weaving together very beautifully here. And I love your celebration of this for sure. So now you all were not always doing sound baths, right? You were not always sound healers. Your musical journey definitely started off a little bit more mainstream, pop, rock, electronica, correct?
Yeah, and what's interesting is, Seth was mentioning the events we would have and the big shows we would play in Brooklyn. And actually what would happen oftentimes after like a really electric show is someone would come up to me and say, wow, thank you. That was really life altering and transformational.
Wow.
And so it's not really that there's any separation with this particular incarnation of the experience and evolution of what we're doing. I think it's just, what's resonating with people right now, what's helping people journey through this portal of the last few years and what that's been. But I feel like it was always sort of sound healing, or at least like transformational, vibrational experience on some level.
That's so great. It's so beautiful to see how it's evolved. And it's one of the things I say. I have been actually, I used to find a gong master in New York City back in the 90s and was figuring out gong baths because it really, and also kirtan at yoga centers, so singing, chanting. And it really was because I was so wound up and working so hard, and those really helped me. It was probably the only thing that was working to really, really help clear and calm. And so I love that people have discovered this, and that sound baths are, you can find them pretty much all around. In fact, I went to one in Ireland when I was way up in northwestern Ireland in Donegal when I was there in the summer. I mean, crazy that I happened to have that experience up there, and to feel how and experience how they're done differently maybe than what I know from, say, the yoga festivals here. In fact, I like to say that sound baths are the new yoga.
I agree.
Totally.
And I feel one of the great things is that with the rise of yoga and the popularity of yoga studios and all the opening of new spaces, that since sound baths are kind of the yoga of music, that it just gives so many opportunities for sound baths to happen. And we at first our exposure to sound baths was similar to yours, that we were going to kirtans and we would see it at
And gong baths too.
gong baths, and we would see it. It was still it was a little bit you had to sort of search it out a little bit more and to find it, but it's really been wonderful over the past decade, just seeing how widespread the acceptance has become, that
and also a gateway to meditation. A lot of people are doing sound baths that might not have tried meditation or been interested or really able to do it for whatever reason, can try a sound bath and really have some incredible results and experiences.
Yes, I definitely find that it works in that way too. So it's I'm a believer, and I think there's a lot of different ways that one can experience it, and don't doubt about. I mean, there's nothing like having it in person. There's no question, but don't doubt the relevance and power of having it also online.
Yeah, and when we first transitioned, we wondered as well. But then when we really, I mean, mostly Seth fine-tuning the vibrations, coming through the other end on the computer or your device or whatever that is one part of it. But then also, really remembering like all of these studies about long distance healing and how well that works, and how much evidence there is for healing being transmitted, or opening some sort of healing gateway for someone, even if you are thousands of miles away. And there's scientific evidence, different studies of this. So, yeah, I think it's something that can be carried across any channel if the intention is there.
It's
and
great.
another great thing about the doing it online is the environment. So if you go into a public space, there's a certain psychological mindset that you take on being in a public sphere, as opposed to your environmental
In your sanctuary,
when you're in
your
your
bedroom,
exactly
your quiet space.
when you're in your home experiencing it online, that you could potentially go to deeper places simply because of your level of comfort.
Or fall asleep in your bed.
Or fall asleep if that's what you need. And the great thing is too, is that being such a subjective experience, that whatever you go into it wanting to achieve, whether it's just falling asleep or whether it's dealing with a specific condition, that you can actually just program that intention, and that you can receive back what you need. So it's not strictly programmed for any one particular condition. It actually could potentially help you no matter what you may need at any given time.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate that. That's a good tip. I'm going to remember to do that on Friday when I listen. So, Jenny, let's talk a little more about astrology for the beginner. So I think everybody kind of can figure out their sun sign, but let's encourage them to look a little bit beyond, if you can. I mean, not everybody's always going to be able to figure out their rising. And
it's helpful if you know your birth time.
Okay.
But sometimes it can be sort of figured out even if you don't. An astrologer can, move some numbers around to see if they can find the right energy connections. But the things people mostly look at as a beginner, there's the sun sign, You can use a site like astro.com and plug all your information in, including your birth date and time, and it will show you your chart. The moon sign is also very important. So the sun is what you radiate. It's just really the core of your personality. It's an energy that's just like really you, how you are in the world. And the moon sign, also important, is an energy that's a little bit more subconscious. It's just like your emotions, how you react to things before you think about it. It's just something that's deeply ingrained. Some astrologers say that it's energy that comes from a past life that you truly understand in a really deep subconscious way. And so oftentimes, if someone's moon sign and sun sign are the same, they'll be very compatible because they really understand each other's energy. So it's not just about the sun sign compatibility. Sun and moon is very important. Then also there's the rising sign, which to me really just shows your personality, what someone might first see of you before they go a little bit deeper, just at first glance. So, for example, I'm Gemini rising. I'm curious. I talk a lot. I have a very airy energy, as I'm sure you noticed. But when you watch the sound bath, maybe more of my sun sign comes out. I'm Capricorn energy. So that's rooted and grounded, just kind of holding a space. But the energy you might first see if you're just talking to me is this Gemini energy of curiosity and liking to communicate. And so the moon I have is Libra. And so that's a very creative sign. And it's also, a friendly sign and diplomatic, just wanting to feel a sense of peace and harmony in the world. So yeah, you always have a strong connection between these three. And there are all the other planets, you will be in certain signs and have certain connections, but I always look at the sun, moon, and ascendant first.
Okay,
And the
everyone.
angles of the
So,
chart too. But
and
those three, if you take a look at those, it'll definitely tell you something about your personality and your connections to others, and also what's going on in the cosmos at any particular time, how that relates to you.
fantastic. Okay, and you do work with people one on one on their
Yes, I
charts.
do.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. That could be fun. So when okay, I'm trying to make this a timeless talk here. So I'm not I would love to say what's going to happen in 2023, but I'm going to avoid that. But I do want to ask something because we've got when it is the full moons are or the new moon, you always hear that they're in a certain sign. So, given that tonight's new moon is in Gemini, can you talk to us a little bit about what that means for those of us that aren't Gemini or those of us that are? So month by month we can kind of have an understanding of that.
Yeah, so it's if it's a full moon in Gemini, whether your sun or moon or ascendant is in Gemini, we all have a part of our chart, an experience in life that is Gemini. So there's a part of our chart is divided into 12 parts that includes all 12 of the signs. So we all have Gemini somewhere. So a full moon in Gemini, um, this is so a full moon is always a time of a culmination. It's a time to release energies. It's kind of like the boiling point. Everything builds up and then you just release. And in Gemini, it's about our thoughts, our communication. So, well, something else very interesting is happening during this full moon. So I have to bring it up is the Mars retrograde in Gemini. So you've got this Mars retrograde and the moon, which is a highly emotional combination. So it's really important at this time if you feel your energy sort of getting elevated to just take a few deep breaths. Mars retrograde can be even more challenging than Mercury retrograde to people because the energy of Mars is to want to move forward, to want to get things done. And so in Gemini, you want to, focus everything. You want to, put all your thoughts into action. You want to move forward. But retrogrades are for reevaluation. So with Mars, this planet of wanting to move forward, just having to like take a few deep breaths, reassess, reevaluate so that you can move forward in a way that's really in alignment and it's not just all over the place. So I think this full moon is a lot about that, just really like allowing your thoughts to just kind of flow through, not being too attached to it, not being too emotionally attached to any particular thing that's happening in the moment, just really feeling that sense of grounding and just being in a peaceful place so that you don't get swept away in all of this energy, and just letting Mars retrograde take its course and show you what it needs to show you. There's incredible opportunities for learning with these transits, for growing in a big way, depending on how you choose to navigate them.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, it's great. And one of the things that's been a revelation for me is having an understanding of all the different signs, because when you move into, say, Sagittarius season that we're in right now, the qualities show up for all of us, even though I'm not a Sagittarius, nor is my moon or rising in Sagittarius. However, it's still, again, the weather of where we're at,
Yes.
Correct? So,
Yeah,
I mean, it
exactly.
just makes it all much more interesting. Leo season. It makes sense. It's during the heat of summer
The
right
sun.
there. And
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible. It makes so much sense. The more you dig in, the more it all starts to come together. It's really great.
Yes.
I could talk
Yes.
to the two of you forevermore, but I'm going to wrap up gently. I was wondering, I don't know if you have any of your sound bowls with you, or if you'd like to leave us with a few words of blessing to wrap things up.
I can grab one bowl.
You're going to do that. Seth, while Jenny's doing that, I also wanted to say, I was thinking about music, the music of the spheres and the planets and the interconnectivity of all. You know what made me think of? The movie Close Encounters, when they were
Oh,
playing
yeah.
music. They were
Oh
playing
yeah, I love
music.
that film. Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, right? That music is the great connector.
It's a universal language, and actually when we sent out a probe out into space to potentially communicate with extraterrestrials, one of the things that they included was some kind of like gold-plated record system
Yeah.
that would play music for extraterrestrials, that they thought that mathematics and music were universal languages. So they sent mathematical diagrams on the spaceship and phonograph records of, like, I think the Beatles are included and certain other, like,
Probably classical,
considered
for sure.
classical
Classical music.
music,
Yeah.
and other examples that they thought were the best examples of human music, that this was one of the things that they thought may be able to communicate across planets. So
Amazing.
That is just so beautiful.
Also, I have to say, a concept I've been really interested in lately is the close encounters of the fifth kind.
Okay.
Which is when you are just channeling the cosmic communication. So groups of people get together out in like Joshua Tree and meditate together so that they can channel. So it's not like an alien is landing a ship or an extraterrestrial is landing a ship and you're seeing them in the physical form. You are channeling the information, and oftentimes in a group, so that your visitation is like this internal ethereal connection.
Oh, count me in. I'm there.
I know.
Maybe that's what this show is doing. Let's pretend.
Close encounter, with that in mind, close encounters of the fifth kind. Let's play a bowl for a moment.
I want to hear this. All right, everyone. This is so high frequency that we're actually not able to hear it. Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. So you're just going to have to go to the YouTube channel to watch this. Thank you, Jenny. It's subtle. It is subtle, subtle, subtle stuff. It's great. But most importantly, you can see Jenny and Seth, Dynasty Electrik, that electric ends with a K versus a C, on their YouTube channel, website, and join the community with what they're doing in so many different beautiful ways, showing up with so much for us. And you're so generous, and that's why I just had to have you on the show. Thank you both.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you,
you
Bonnie.
so much, Bonnie. We really appreciate it. Thank you for all of your insights and for the lovely conversation. Thank you to all the listeners. Yeah, join us Friday nights on YouTube every single Friday for a new astrology sound bath.
Until the next time, thank you again.
Thank you.
We appreciate all you listeners. I want to make sure you know that we are, truth be told, we'll be having its first ever event. It's called the Parapod Fest, parapodfestival.com. And it is going to be April 1st in Santa Clarita, which is just a small jump away from LA. So I hope that everybody will join us. Maybe Jenny and Seth want to come and be our sound bath healers for the event. We'll have to talk to them about that. So we are here to, again, spread the word, conscious community. So thanks for sharing and letting us know if there's any questions you have or ideas for us. We really want to gather here and spread the word for, again, the highest possible truth to live our best lives. See you next time. Thank you again. Namaste.